Hi Detoxers! This week I want to dive into the idea of affordability and the low sugar lifestyle. I'm also going to talk a little bit about supplements today because I notice as we get towards the end of the program, people are starting to wonder, what supplements would I take? Which ones would I recommend? But before I get into supplements, I want to say that the best place to spend your money is in the quality of your food. A supplement is a supplement to an already excellent diet. So trying to move around the concept of eating well doesn't really work long term. So yes, I get it. If if you have a really terrible diet and you supplement with certain supplementations, that there is going to be some added benefit, but it will be very minimal compared to the amount of energy and resources and the kickback that you get when you invest in your actual food. So that's what I want to talk about. So when I talk about good supplementation, I always start with food because at the end of the day, what you eat and what you drink 365 days a year is far more powerful. So how do you afford this? Because sometimes we're led to believe that eating well is only really a choice for those who have a lot of extra money. Probably to some point, but I will challenge you to say you have more money to spend on this than you realize, because in a lot of cases, this is simply about priorities. If you lost your health, if you were faced with a really significant health challenge, it is amazing how much money you can come up with when it comes to investing in things like what you eat and what kind of hydration you put into your body. So I would say to you, what part of you wants to invest in that now so that you're living your life cultivating health as opposed to trying to restore good health. So the food that you buy, the choices that you make, the way in which you prepare it, and the consumption of it goes a long ways towards building your own guaranteed, or mostly guaranteed, controllable health plan. This is what I would try and encourage you to do, because time and time again, being a chiropractor for all the years that I've been a chiropractor, the people who do that over the long term spend a lot less money on food than people, or on their health rather, than people who really just wait for it to be an issue later in life. So where do you spend your money in this way so that you get the most bang for your buck? I'm going to start with the concept of vegetables and produce, fruit and vegetables. I encourage people to always eat organic. Why? Because I really believe that pesticides and herbicides and genetically modified ingredients and all of those types of things that we spray on our food, of course, becomes part of who we are. But I also recognize that some things are more important than others, and we don't always have the money to be able to make everything organic, or we simply don't have the ability to buy everything organically. So this is what I would tell you. In our email, we talk about the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can go to the Environmental Working Group website, ewg.org, and you can look up this very concept. And what they do is they prioritize for you what are the produce, what fruits and vegetables are most important for you to buy organically because they're the most pesticide laden. That sounds like a good idea to me. So looking up and prioritizing your spending on things that are the most pesticide laden would make a lot of sense. And at the same time, the Clean 15 is really those fruits and vegetables that don't have as many pesticides and herbicides on them already. All right, so that would be the first thing. So when we're talking about fruits and vegetables, that's the place we go. The other thing I would say is, I think it's really important to have a small discussion, or maybe an entire video, but in this case, a small discussion on genetically modified ingredients. Non-GMO is one of the most important things to focus on when we talk about where we're going to spend our money. And if I explain to you on some level what genetically modified means, I think you'd understand it. So a genetically modified ingredient or a genetically modified crop means that we have taken the seed and we have injected a pesticide, Roundup, or we call it, which is the one that you go to Home Hardware or Home Depot and you'll find locked under, or at least in Canada, under a plastic wrap with a padlock. That is a pesticide that we inject, it's called glyphosate, into the seed. And when that seed gets planted in the earth and that crop grows, when an insect eats it, it is toxic to the insect. Well, guess what? It's toxic to us too. So then the next question always arises, well, why is it in our food supply? That's a great question. Why is it in our food supply? It's in micro amounts, but there are so many more emerging genetically modified crops that we are getting increasing levels of genetically modified ingredients in our body. So tons and tons of glyphosate, or toxic Roundup if you want to think of it that way, and it is definitely affecting our digestion and our gut health and our overall health, very cancer causing and so on. You will find other countries in the world are either not allowing genetically modified ingredients into the country, or they're absolutely requiring labeling. For all sorts of dollars, that isn't occurring in Canada, but suffice to say, having a little bit of education around what are the most commonly genetically modified crops and choosing organic so that you're minimizing your exposure to GMO is a great, great thing, especially for your children. So you want to be going organic wherever possible. Focus on the environmental working group, Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. You want to start to move towards less genetically modified, or ideally no genetically modified. And then of course, when you're starting to think about animal products, we can go back to things like, can you be buying things that are more naturally raised? So instead of farmed fish, can you buy wild fish? And instead of grain-fed chickens, can you buy pasture-raised chickens? And instead of grain-fed cows, can you get grass-fed cows? So any amount of sliding towards that is always an upgrade. Organic, of course, is also great, because not only have those cows or those pigs or those chickens had perhaps grain that has pesticides and herbicides and so on top of them, and maybe even genetically modified as in soy and corn, but they also may have been routinely prescribed and given antibiotics and hormones. And so when you in turn consume those animals, or you have their milk or whatnot, then of course you're getting those antibiotics and hormones put into your body. So you can see how as you start to deepen into this, you can start to make choices that make more sense. Always, I would say, where you can afford it, buy it, okay? So focus on the things that are the dirtiest in terms of produce, clean that up, start to add in more of really, whether you're talking about animal products or you're talking about whole food products that are raised more naturally the way they're supposed to. That will go a long ways towards leveraging your health, okay? The last thing that you want to choose is conventional raised. We have mass-produced, huge super farms, things that are routinely giving antibiotics and hormones, tons and tons of pesticides and herbicides, and of course, full of genetically modified seeds. Those are the things you want to minimize your diet. Okay, so I just couldn't go into supplementation, and I just couldn't talk about adding in a cost or another layer of healthcare if we're not really taking care of the foundation, because that's what we do all the time. The place I haven't talked about yet is, what about the hydration that you have? Where do you get your water source from? You should be drinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 liters a day of water, and where you get your water is important. You will often see me drinking my water out of something like a glass jar or a stainless steel jar rather, because these products won't leach bad chemicals into my water. But the water that I start with, for me, is reverse osmosis. So if you're gonna upgrade your water experience, I would say installing a reverse osmosis is key. You can get an excellent reverse osmosis from Lowe's or Home Depot in the neighborhood of 250 Canadian dollars. And once a year, roughly, depending on where you live, you'll have to change your filters, which cost $60. It puts it in the neighborhood of 2 cents per gallon of water, right? So being able to have reverse osmosis means that you're filtering out a lot of the things that you really, really, really don't want to be consuming in your diet. A lot of the antibiotics and the other things that go into our water supply get filtered out, and that means that you're hydrating yourself with the highest quality water. If you don't want a reverse osmosis, I would also check out Berkey filters, and those are roughly in the neighborhood of around $300 as well. They provide a really nice product. So having the best possible foundational pieces, I think, are super important. Whether you're talking about your food supply or talking about your hydration, both are equally important. Now, when we're talking about supplements, I know this is the part that you want to know about. I'm going to talk about 3 simple supplements, okay? These are the 3 things. Now, everybody's an individual, everybody has a different health history, but I find in general, across the board, these are 3 supplements that I find are essential for a lot of people. The first one being probiotics. So there's lots of different brands on the market. The majority of the ones that you're gonna wanna buy from a reputable health food store. Dollar for dollar, they're the ones that are actually selling the highest grade, and it's important. Now, probiotics are actually live microorganisms. So generally the best quality ones are ones that are kept in the fridge. These are 2 brands that I use, Genestra, HMF Fort, and I also use one called Microbiome Labs Megaspore Biotic. What I love about this one is it's very high concentration, but it's actually in a spore form. So this one you can actually travel with. What I also do is I like to go back and forth between them. So having a great probiotic in your diet is really essential. And the reason being is that our guts are filled with microbiome, and microbiome is just the fancy word for gut organisms. Those live gut bacteria that we have are really essential for breaking down food and cultivating proper gut health. And because our gut is considered our second brain, where it produces 80 to 90% of our immune system and supports a lot of the hormones that we need for proper mental, emotional well-being and good general health, it is really important that we keep up really healthy levels. Now, you can do it outside of just having probiotics, but this is one supplement that I think is always worth spending money on. The other thing is that you can get healthy forms of probiotics within food. Okay, so back to the whole food idea. A couple of the ones that I do, most of them are fermented vegetables, and you will actually find that people are making these, and you can buy these in almost every traditional store now, but definitely in your health food store. So these are the few of the things that I buy on a regular basis. Now, just so you know, you don't need to eat bowls and bowls of this. A tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of the day is a massive amount of healthy probiotics. So that's all you need. Kimchi is fermented vegetables. They're very rich in probiotics and delicious. They're a little bit spicy, so if you don't love that, I put this with my eggs, I put it on my salad, I'll just simply put it on the side of my plate. I love it. I'm not as big a fan of sauerkraut, but this kind of sauerkraut, Bubby's is a great brand, there are others. You want raw sauerkraut, so not the kind that's on like the hot dog cart outside of the nightclub. This is the kind of sauerkraut that you want. Again, very healthy and good for you. This is another version of a sauerkraut. Instead of making out of that cabbage, this is red cabbage. So there are different brands, different varieties. They all taste a little bit different. They're good, but also keep in mind that you get that type of fermentation that's rich in the gut biosis in other things like relish. So relish has some relish has sugar. This one does not. It's by Bubby's as well. And the way that this one is made is it has a lot of those rich probiotics in them. So this has the gut microbiome that you're looking for, that you want to make sure is colonized. So you can look for it if you are upgrading your relish with time. That's one way I get it in my kids' bellies without them even recognizing. I advocate that you make a lot of your own salad dressings in this program, and one of the reasons why it's so great for you is you can use apple cider vinegar, which is a fermented apple cider, in your recipes, and this is also very positive. Now, even having a tablespoon a day, which I find really hard to do, but a lot of people have no problem with it, of apple cider is really, really great for digestion. It's very anti-parasitic. It's just delicious for you, or not delicious for you, definitely not delicious for you, excellent for you. So you can put that either in your salad dressing, or you can actually just supplement it on your own. The other way you can do it is also to have kombucha. Another thing that's really taken off. You know that it's hit mainstream when you can buy it at Costco, because you can. So GT's kombucha is one of my favorites. Just make sure that you are looking at how much sugar is in each one. But this is like a fizzy kind of drink that can be really, really delicious, but also therapeutic, because it is adding to your gut biosis. And as long as you're getting ones that are low in sugar, this is fantastic. You don't have to drink a whole jar a day. Half a cup, 3/4 of a cup is more than enough, okay? So those are the ways in which I would recommend that you get probiotics into your system, but also recognize that this is an important part of it as well. Okay, that's number one. Number two, vitamin D3. So I like to buy an emulsified vitamin D3 in the drop form. If you buy them in the capsules, you're probably not going to get enough, or you're going to have to take way too many capsules to be able to get the amount that most people are recommending. The next time you have a blood test, I would highly suggest that you ask your medical doctor to put down that you would like your vitamin D3 levels measured in your body. So we make vitamin D in our bodies when our skin is exposed to natural sunlight, but it has to be natural sunlight, not in January, but in the summer when the sun is more powerful. Having no sunblock on us and our body being exposed to it will make vitamin D. Now, most people though are low in their vitamin D levels. And because vitamin D is more like a hormone than it is a vitamin, it's really, really essential that we have the right amounts of it. So I would recommend that you get tested for it. It's going to cost you roughly $30 to $35 that you would pay the lab directly. I think that's really important because having that knowledge is important. Now, it is a fat-soluble vitamin. Technically, you can have too much in your system, but I guarantee the majority of people don't. In fact, you're having probably more negative implications because you don't have enough vitamin D in your system. All right, so 5,000 international units is typically what I would recommend for the average adult. I think that should be specific to you based on your lab results, but children should also be supplementing with it as well, and you can get drops that are a little bit lower for them as well. Okay, we can talk more specifically. If you want, you can reach out to me. Now, the third and final one that I'm going to recommend is a form of omega-3 essential fatty acids. It is much easier for your body to do what it needs to do with this if you get the fish variety. In other words, when I say the fish variety, you want to get fish oil if you can tolerate fish oil. If you can't tolerate fish oil, then you can use flaxseed oil and whatnot, but it's a little bit more difficult for your body to convert it properly. So fish oil is superior in this case. Now, this is what I would recommend. There's lots of other brands out there. This one's cod liver oil. You could also get salmon oil or mackerel oil or krill oil. Again, you want to get a really high quality version of it because you want to make sure that there's no heavy metals in it. Get this from a reputable health food store for sure. And then also just recognize that, you know, by adding this in your diet, having salmon, wild salmon, having mackerel, having different forms of cold water fish will also make a big difference in that respect. Now, if you're already eating awesome and you're having tons of whole foods and you're wanting to go further with this, then I definitely would recommend a whole food supplement. And there aren't a lot of whole food supplements on the market, but Juice Plus is one of them. If you are supplementing with Juice Plus, but you don't do anything else, then I would say invest your money into everything else. But if you're doing those things and you want to up level even further, then I would definitely recommend that you find somebody who sells Juice Plus and order from them because it's an excellent adjunct to everything else that you're doing. All right, I hope that answers some of your questions. I know that it's kind of a big topic and that there are specifics to every single person who comes before me. So feel free to reach out to me. We can talk a little bit more specifically about you, but I want you to think about this as a great starting point. All right, have a great day.